And we back with another one. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. I ain't even got to introduce myself. This is my channel. Y'all know who I am, man. But Awthentik, sir, I discovered you. Not discovered you like I found you and introduced you to the world now, but I stumbled across some of your content. You are heavy in my chat and Will Steele's chat, and I just thought you was just somebody in the chat. And Will Steele was like, "Hey man, Awthentik do some good work Giants wise. Y'all need to go see him." I'm like, "All right, cool. I don't normally do this, but I'll peep." And one thing I respect is people hopping in and they setup looking good and they audio sounding good and they visuals make sense. But when they start talking, they don't just be out here spewing nonsense. You gained a lot of respect from me, and I just want to show you off a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So appreciate you for being here, sir. What's happening with you?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me, man. I think this kind of long overdue with all the times I've been in your chat, you know, in the previous season and whatnot, man. And y'all do some good work. Love what you and Steele do, man. Y'all high quality content creators. I'm right there with you too. I don't really go dibbling and dabbling into too many other fan bases, but y'all definitely put some high quality Cowboys content out there. And yeah, I'm just trying to do the same thing with the Giants. And yeah, I got a channel called Awthentik and the Beard. We cover the NFC East from a New York Giants and a Washington Commanders kind of perspective. I live in Washington, D.C., and my partner on the show, he's a Commanders fan. I'm a lifelong Giants fan. And yeah, by day, I'm a producer, engineer, film creator. Yeah, I'm you know, aspiring to do a lot these days. And yeah, I'm about to be 41 coming up this year too.
Man, I thought we was the same age, man. Shouts out to you, dog. But it gets weird when you watch other teams' content. You know what I mean? They like to lie, and especially when you just played them in the whole rivalry thing that I don't really believe in. Really, like players don't really look at it that way. It's real like a fan thing. Like, oh, you know, somebody say, "Hey, Voch, look at this Eagles content." I'm like, cool, I'll oblige you and look at some Eagles content. And Dak Prescott is terrible. He trash and da-da-da. I'm like, man, this is a dude that's been smoking you for years, man. But you keep it a buck, sir. You keep it a buck. And I'm like, man, I respect anybody just keeping it a buck, especially when it comes to Dak. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody just want to lie on his name. And I'm just like, man, it's teams that'll love to have him. And you don't lie about my guy. So big salutes.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be a unbiased fan, and although I'm rooting for my squad and whatnot, I'm not going to sit up here and paint a different picture for other players. And you know, players have their weaknesses and they have their strengths. I think Dak Prescott is, you know, regular season-wise, a fantastic quarterback. It's just when you get to those clutch moments, that's been a thing for him. But he does take the majority of the weight, not only from other fan bases, I think from y'all fan base as well. I've been seeing the chatter within y'all fan base as well, you know, people talking, letting Dak Prescott go, let him go walk to free agency next year. And there are even Giants people that are saying Dak Prescott's an option as the Giants quarterback in a couple of years here, which is kind of wild. But yeah, I just try to keep it a buck, try to keep it 100 on, you know, everything. And one thing you never see from me is me calling players trash or nothing like that. Cause I mean, they're all playing at the highest level. If they're a starter in the NFL, I can't sit up here from my couch or from my desk and be calling players trash. So yeah, I just try to keep it funky, man, on all the players from my team and across the league as well.
So this is where I'm phony, right? Because I try to keep it a buck, but I can't stand the Eagles. I ain't really got a problem with, you know, Giants and Washington football Wizards in that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, they could be kind of annoying, but that's just like how this thing goes, right? But like Eagle fans, I feel like are some of the most unreasonable people in the world. So let me ask you this, right? You approach the Giants from a very realistic, you know what I mean? Like, hey, man, we're going to rebuild the team and just kind of see where we're at. We're going to roll with Daniel Jones one more time. We just brought in drafted neighbors, and we're going to go from there. I personally feel like the Eagles are headed for destruction. And I don't even think I'm hating when I say that. Like, the way I just presented it, I'm hating. You know what I'm saying? Saying it like that. But, dog, just seeing what they did the last 8 games of the season with Drew Lock and Baker Mayfield and all those guys, I just think that they're heading for some trouble. So where you at on them, the Eagles?
Coaching is definitely an issue over there, I think, with Nick Sirianni. Losing both their coordinators the previous season hurt them. My guy, Denard Wilson, who is a good homie of one of my homies, and, you know, losing him in the secondary to the Ravens last season, I think that really hurt them. You know, the Eagles were a top 10 unit in the secondary, and then all of a sudden they fall to the bottom of the league. Their pass defense becomes one of the worst defenses, and then you look at what happens with the Ravens, with Denard Wilson going over there. They won a Triple Crown for defense, you know, top defense in the league. So I do think it's more of a coaching thing than it is a roster and a personnel thing for the Philadelphia Eagles. although they are one of the teams that has had a lot of change on that roster in the past couple of years. I just saw something that said they're top 10 as far as, not bringing back as many players. Washington being top 3 in that category as well. So I like the pieces they got. I mean, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. I have a lot of faith in Jalen Hurts. I've had faith in him since he was drafted into this league. I think a lot of people, kind of looked at him as an underdog and whatnot. I just thought it was a thing about fixing the mechanics the first couple of years, and I thought he could be a player that could excel in this league. A good leader. I think he can keep them, above water. But last year kind of reminded me a bit of what happened to the Detroit Lions the previous year, where the Detroit Lions kind of got on a hot streak, started off like 1-6, and then ended up winning their last like 6 games, barely missed the playoffs. So you kind of could foresee what was going to happen with them entering the next season. And then you look at the past season here with Detroit, they were a juggernaut, got to the playoffs. A lot of people's NFC, Super Bowl representer is what people were thinking at the, beginning of the playoffs and whatnot. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are kind of like the opposite of that, like had such a bad ending to their season. And to see their coaching staff not make those kind of adjustments when teams were playing them a similar style throughout the rest of those 6 games, I think it's an egregious mistake on the coaching staff. And Nick Sirianni doesn't strike me as a guy and this kind of crazy to say, like as a podcaster and a dude who is an NFL coach, but he don't strike me as a guy, focused on the X's and O's. So
you don't.
You got to bring in the talent, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, those kind of guys that's going to fill that role if you're going to be, the leader of men kind of guy. And I think that's what they're lacking over there.
Yeah, I've never seen him with a dry erase marker board. I've never seen him, with the Microsoft Surface pads or anything like that. And I've never heard clips. And look, I follow all the clips and the mic'd ups and the sound bites, and I've just heard him kind of. Come on, guys, you know what I'm saying? And I always have a little joke or whatever. It's a joke, but it's really real. Like the Eagles had 3 head coaches, but they kept the worst one, So like, Shane is winning games with damn Gardner Minshew. So when Richardson comes back, I think the Colts are definitely going to be formidable. And the Cardinals were just a team that just annoyed the piss out of everybody with Josh Dobbs and company. And, Kyler Murray comes back and they're just rebuilding. But I even think that Gannon is a guy that can take a little bit and make a lot out of it. So once he gets a team with a little bit of talent around him and, Kyler, Marvin Harrison is a huge help for that. I think they can be even better, man. I just think Sirianni, man, and, like you said, like it's not a talent issue, but it just goes back to that Eagles dream team days, like, hey, man, you can compile talent, but if it ain't like cohesive, it don't really mean much to you,
Yeah, that's facts. And I do think there's a big gap between the AFC and the NFC. And the Eagles, they look like a front-running team that could compete with the best of the best from the AFC the previous year when, you saw Jalen Hurts go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes. If it wasn't for that one fumble, in the middle of that game, they might come away as the Super Bowl victors in that game. So I'm definitely in agreement with you on keeping the worst of the 3 coaches. We saw the 2 others go get head coaching jobs, and they seem to be building programs where they're at, like you said about Arizona. And I know that comes with a bit of grain of salt being a Dallas Cowboys fan, because that was an interesting loss for y'all at the beginning of the year. We ended up lucking up against them in the second half and pulling a miraculous comeback, but they really should have beat us too. So I do think both those teams are headed in the right direction for sure. And it seemed like the Philadelphia Eagles tried to kind of, this is how I look at their situation. Like, you had a manager that knows the ins and outs of a company and everything, right? And he knows when things go wrong, how to fix them. A lot of people look at issues within a business as, how do we just like keep it the same way? But they don't look at the troubleshooting issues that could possibly occur. And I think that's what happened with the offensive side of the ball with the Eagles. Like, they ran that same exact Steichen style of offense. Yeah. But when things started to go wrong, they couldn't pivot. They couldn't find another style of play to be able to try to win games in a different fashion. Yeah. And we really didn't see the best version of the Philadelphia Eagles all year long. Even in the games they won early on, everyone was saying, well, that was an ugly win. We're still waiting on the Philadelphia Eagles to really get right and win a game, and play a flawless victory. And we really never saw that throughout the whole entire season.
I knew something was afoot. And we ain't here to talk about the Eagles for real, but I just love some good hate. Yep. I knew something was afoot when Mac Jones went out and threw for 400 yards versus some characters in week 1, week 2, week 3, something like that.
Facts.
I was like, oh, boy, it's some mess coming down the pipe, boy. I can't wait. But we ain't here to talk about that. So let me just ask you, do you believe in tanking? I know there's a lot of people that fundamentally believe that tanking is some nonsense and, you should try to win every game and it's good for like the morale of your team to go out there and try to give it their best and all that. And that's cute. Continuity is cool. I say this all the time. Shouts out to Will Smith. Me and him say this all the time. Continuity is cool, but the only thing better than continuity is better dudes, because you can try to continuity your way into getting fired. And, I've kind of seen your commentary on, Daniel Jones and all that, and you can kind of tie that into this. If the Giants were into tanking, y'all would have been walking into the season with a Jaden Daniels or something, or maybe a Caleb Williams possibly, right? So do you believe in tanking? And give me the current state of, Giants quarterbacking.
Yeah, so there's two sides to the coin, I think, when it comes to tanking. Players, coaches, fans, and whatnot. I don't think that those three entities should be rooting for tanking. But if I'm at the top of the organization and I'm a GM, I'm an owner, and I see that this team is headed nowhere fast, they're already looking like they're eliminated from playoff contention, like the New York Giants were last year. I forget what we started off, like 1-6, something crazy, right? Sure. And that it's going to take a miracle to get you into the playoffs, especially when you get eliminated from the playoffs. I think at that point, you need to start evaluating younger talent. Some people will call that tanking, but I think you should evaluate the younger talent, put some of the guys on the field that don't really get as much playing time, see what you got on the roster, especially in year 2 of a rebuild for guys like Joe Shane. You really need to deeply assess this roster and the depth pieces that you have along it. And I think that they didn't do that. And that's the stubbornness of the New York Giants way, right? It's like, you even heard it from John Mara when they talked about why they didn't trade Saquon Barkley before the trade deadline. Same thing with Xavier McKinney. We allow 2 players that most franchises would find a way to retain. We allow them to walk without getting anything from it. Same thing happened with Landon Collins. This has happened time and time again with the New York Giants because they're in their own way when it comes to their pride. And I think that was the whole thing with the tanking thing. It's like, the pride kicked in. Tyrod Taylor even got hurt, and I thought that gave us the perfect alley-oop for the Giants to be able to set themselves up to go out there and get the quarterback the following year, lose enough games, and then, Tommy DeVito comes in, 3-game winning streak, and the rest is history. And here we are sitting at pick 6, which to me was one of the most difficult positions to be in this draft at pick 6 because 6 quarterbacks end up going in the top 12. Now, if it was me, I would have pulled the trigger on Michael Penix at 6. I don't care what the consensus says around the league, what these draft experts were saying. I looked at all of Michael Penix tape, every one of his snaps, every one of his games, and I was totally okay with pulling the trigger for Michael Penix at 6 and then going into the second round and trying to find a wide receiver 1 in the second round. At the time, I thought it would be a guy like Xavier Legette, who ended up going in the first round to the Carolina Panthers. I was cool with it being a guy like Troy Franklin, Keon Coleman. I had so many second and third round wide receivers on my board to pair with a guy like Michael Penix. I thought it would have been perfect. And for those that don't, follow my content and know how I feel about the quarterback situation with the Giants, I mean, with Daniel Jones, I think that he's an average quarterback, right? And you can't build your franchise around an average quarterback. And when I say average, I mean, that's being nice, right? Like, there are guys who I don't consider franchise quarterbacks at this moment where a team might not want to build around them right now, but I still feel like they play above average football. Maybe a guy like Jared Goff, who consistently is at the top of the league now as far as touchdown to interception ratio, yards, and all that. He's climbing his team back to victories and all that. Daniel Jones doesn't have that. And then to add on top of that, we're talking about a guy that's been hurt 4 out of 5 seasons. He cannot stay healthy. The only healthy season that he had was 2022. When Brian Daboll and Joe Shane first got to the New York Giants. And I knew it was a mistake to give him the money, and all the Giants fans were all happy about the playoff win against the Minnesota Vikings, one of the worst defenses in the league, and then we go out there in the divisional and we get our socks blown off against the Philadelphia Eagles. And I thought that was the moment where people should have known, okay, you saw your quarterback come out here. They neglected the running game throughout the whole back half of the season, to be honest. They've neglected giving the ball to Saquon Barkley. 9 carries against the Minnesota Vikings, 9 carries against the Philadelphia Eagles, right? So we come out, we try to pass the ball, and our quarterback looks pathetic out there. Right then and there, that should have let you know that you can't pay this guy the money. My thoughts were to go with a bridge quarterback. It's funny you say Gardner Minshew. He was at the top of my list at the time. I remember his time in Jacksonville. The numbers were really good. I thought he was a guy who could come in and be serviceable. Maybe a Jacoby Brissett. I also thought Marcus Mariota was one of my options as well because look at the way the Giants ran their offense in 2022. A lot of read option, a lot of RPO. And that, to me, is what a guy like Marcus Mariota excels at. I thought he could have ran the offense, if not as good, maybe even better than Daniel Jones ran it in 2022. And you're talking about for a fraction of the price. As soon as I saw these numbers coming around, franchise tag numbers at $30 million or above, $40 million for a quarterback who really has not put pen to paper. The resume is not there. I started looking at all the contracts that have been signed in the past decade. There aren't guys who get paid like that off of potential with zero resume. And I think Daniel Jones is probably one of the only quarterbacks in the past decade, maybe more than that got a big payday like that and literally has zero resume. His biggest games was the Minnesota Vikings playoff victory, the game that clinched against the Indianapolis Colts where he had 2 touchdowns on the ground. And that's really it. He had a 5-touchdown game against Washington in his rookie season. And there's not much on the paper for Daniel Jones. So for me, I've been done with that experiment. People are still, doubling down on Daniel Jones. Oh, now we got him a wide receiver 1. I get it. They did not put him in the best situation to succeed. But at the end of the day, you should be able to see through those blurred lines and at least be able to assess the quarterback and be able to evaluate the quarterback. And that's the common theme with New York Giants fans is that with the pieces around Daniel Jones, we're unable to evaluate him. And I just think that's a bunch of BS. So for me, I've been ready to move on. They should have went quarterback this draft. And honestly, this might be the thing that puts Joe Shane and Brian Dable, the last nail in the coffin for them if they don't get a chance to go out there and get their own quarterback and be able to develop their own quarterback. And they passed up on arguably one of the best draft classes to do so.
Yeah, man, tanking, is tough and people talk they talk as if it's so taboo and all that. But like a real franchise quarterback changes everything. Like you get raises, you get to, you get to get carried by somebody, Like if you're the Jaguars or something like that, Trev may not have like playoff, wins just yet, but at least you're not garbage. Like you're at least contending every year. Look at the fortunes of like the Texans right now. You got a CJ Stroud, sir. Yep. You got a CJ Stroud for a long, assuming he don't go rob a bank or something or try to, move some drugs across the border or whatever. Like long as he don't do nothing.
Rashi Rice or something like that.
And he can still work his way out of that, I believe. I'm trying to figure out something. You know what I'm saying? Like as long as you, man, the Texans are straight. But the problem with that is it's teams like Carolina, man, y'all got stuff to figure out because you in this little purgatory, man, where you trying to, all right, man, do we have a guy? Do we not have a guy? And I think being in the middle is worse because at least if you a bad team, you at least know, all right, we got to get a quarterback. But if you are in that middle, like if you Tampa Bay with Baker Mayfield, yeah, you went to the playoffs. I get it, man. But your division ain't the best. You got Baker Mayfield playing quarterback for you right now. You're just kind of stuck in this middle. So what I'm saying is, yeah, man, Neighbors is a fantastic pick, but a Jaden Daniels pays off far longer. You know what I mean? And now we're looking at next year's quarterback class. I ain't gonna lie, man. I was watching film on Xavier Worthy this year, on Mitchell this year. And Mitchell. And he could have been a wide receiver 1 for y'all. But Quinn Ewers is worse than I thought. You know what I'm saying? Like it's funny when you watching quarterbacks in passing. But then, like, you watch the film of somebody else, you go, man, that's some nonsense that's happening right here. Like, it really, and I'm saying this because Cowboy fans, not all of us, but the trash ones, they want to move on from Dak Prescott. They want him to leave. They want to save money, and they want to go and draft some other kid. Man, the market ain't sweet out here, man. It ain't sweet out here. Everybody don't just get Caleb Williams. Everybody just don't get Jaden Daniels and them. And I'm actually proud that the league did the right thing by drafting Penix over Nix because Bo Nix was some nonsense. I don't know what they were saying in that. And I'm with you. Yeah. I would have just taken Michael Penix at 6. If that's the case, take Penix at 6. The Falcons getting looked at weird, but Kirk Cousins only got 1 or 2 more years. I think Penix was the third best guy in this league or the third best guy in this draft. And
I'm right there with you on that.
So you know what I'm saying? People can call him old guy all they want to, but man, a 24, 25-year-old quarterback that he gets to play for you. I don't know if he changes, what the Giants look like, or well, he's a Falcon now. I don't know if he changed what the Falcons look like for 12 years. He ain't gonna be Caleb Williams and nothing like that, but he's better than what you got.
Yeah, it's about rolling the dice too. I do think that there's like this myth around, winning with the rookie quarterback, right? Which doesn't happen that much. Like not a lot of people are going to win a Super Bowl in the rookie window with a quarterback on a rookie contract. But what I think is more about is finding that franchise guy. Like CJ Stroud, that they're not going to have a problem at the quarterback position for some years to come. And that's an amazing thing to have. Yeah, he's still on a rookie deal, but you don't have to win a Super Bowl during that rookie window. The goal here is to just get a franchise quarterback. And I think you got to roll the dice. Even teams who have a decent quarterback, solidified. Like, if I'm the Minnesota Vikings and I have Kirk Cousins as my starter, that's not going to stop me from drafting a quarterback. Sure. Even in you guys' situation, which I do think this was a bit of a mistake because I'm not high on this kid, but trading a 3rd or 4th rounder for a guy like Trey Lance, right? Yeah. Now, when you come back to this draft that y'all just had, I think that kind of hurt y'all because in rounds 3, round 4 is when you could have pulled a running back and brought in a guy. Instead, now you're going back to Ezekiel Elliott, which is a bit of an older running back. I think Zeke can still produce, and his best years were with Dallas, obviously, but he's going to need that 1-2 punch. He's going to need another guy with him. I do think this, too, as far as the Zeke Elliott thing. Tony Pollard suffered, and I kind of foresaw this happening. You need that change of pace to go with what Tony Pollard brought to the table. If you look at the averages for Tony Pollard, when he had Zeke over there in the backfield, averaging like over 5 yards per carry, the explosive plays, the amount of times he was getting in the end zone, and then this year having to really drag that offense down the field, more of a yard-by-yard type of running back that by the time they got down to the red zone, he couldn't find his way into the end zone really much. So I don't like what they did with that, but even a team like the Dallas Cowboys were looking at it like, hey, we can get a quarterback who was drafted in the top 10. San Francisco 49ers traded a whole haul for this dude, 3 first-round picks for him, and Miami Dolphins came up, man. I did a video actually on that about the Miami Dolphins, how they traded Laramie Tunsil and wheeled and dealed all those picks to rebuild that franchise. But, yeah, you should always be looking to get that quarterback if you don't have that top 5 guy, which I think it makes it very interesting for the Dallas Cowboys because Dak during the regular season is such a good quarterback. He has that one anomaly season where he led the league in interceptions with 15, I believe it was, and he didn't play the whole season, and people thinking, oh, he's a turnover-prone type of guy. I mean, if you watch ball, you knew Dak Prescott was going to come back and put up big numbers and take care of the ball because that's what he's done his whole entire career. Yeah. It's all about just getting over the hump. This year for you guys, I thought what really hurt y'all, man, is that against the Packers, y'all defense didn't show up. And that was the backbone of the team the whole entire year. And here you go, you got my doppelganger, Jordan Love, running up and down the field, man, like just scoring points all over y'all.
Hey, man, it sucks, man. It sucks. I love Dak, man. I am a Dak truther, and I think, I just think we don't deserve that. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all can have him, and I just want Cowboy fans to really see what life is like with some nonsense. I felt like they knew what life was like when Brandon Weeden and Kellen Moore was out here throwing passes. Not calling plays, Kellen Moore was throwing passes. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. I felt like Cowboy fans would learn their lesson, but I guess it's a new crop that think Cooper Rush is the guy. But anyway, man.
You know it is. And the Quincy Carters, and I'm an OG. I remember those days, bro. Like, yeah, it was bad for y'all.
Oh, man, I ain't even finna get into it, man.